Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core was published by Square Enix and released exclusively for the handheld PlayStation Portable console in 2007. This was the 10th year anniversary at the time for the original Final Fantasy VII. Now, Crisis Core is a prequel to that game and is set about 7 years prior to Avalanche's attack on Midgar's Sector 1 Mako reactor. One character that was little more than introduced in Final Fantasy VII was a young man named Zack Fair. Although Zack's scenes were few and far between, he was established as having an important and intriguing role in the overall world building and story. As such, fans wanted more of him, and Square obliged us by giving him a starring role in his own game. And what a game it is! Crisis Core was released to mostly positive reviews at the time, and in my opinion it became one of the most quintessential games for the PSP system. The mission-based gameplay, action-oriented combat, and the usual Square Enix high-budget presentation all combined to make a truly memorable and at times emotional experience. In fact, I have always considered it to be a great shame that so many Final Fantasy fans had to miss out on not playing this little gem because of not owning a PSP. So in June 2022, when Square announced that my favourite game on that system was to be fully remastered and re-released on modern day consoles, I was overjoyed. And just 6 months later, here it is. Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion is a fully revamped version of the original Crisis Core and is available on PC via Steam, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch. Now, I have been playing Reunion for a little while, and I would like to share with you some good news. Not only is Crisis Core just as fun as it ever was, but this is quite possibly the best remaster that Square Enix has ever released.
The local farms had plenty of them to spare.
Oh, really? So you stole them?
We were poor, Zack.
Now, before we get to what has changed here, let's just clarify what hasn't. This is still the same Crisis Core story through and through. In fact, most scenes play out beat for beat the same as they did in the original PSP game. That means we have the same dialogue and even the same camera angles for the in-game cutscenes. The big updates here are all in context of the presentation of the experience. That means revamped graphics, sound, and gameplay. And Square have clearly gone all out here to give us far more than a typical remaster. However, I do understand why they have chosen to call this an enhanced remaster rather than a full-blown remake. I have had a blast playing through Reunion, but despite its new shiny exterior, I couldn't quite shake the feeling that this was still a game designed for a handheld console. The arcade-style mission-based gameplay of the original is still fully present here and is as addictive as ever. Crisis Core was seemingly designed so that it could be played in short bursts, and as such the experience may at first appear to be less substantive than other JRPGs. Now, this was never an issue when playing on the handheld PSP, of course. However, sitting in your gaming chair and playing on your 65-inch 4K TV does at times feel a little at odds with how the game was originally designed to be played. That said, this is a minor niggle that does not detract from an otherwise wonderful adventure. For those familiar with the 2007 original, the graphical changes here are going to be a huge upgrade. Reunion truly makes Crisis Core look like a modern game that fits perfectly into 2022's library of JRPG releases. Quite simply, Crisis Core has never looked better, and Square have done a stellar job here. There is no AI-based upscaling in play here. We are talking brand spanking new models, textures, and backgrounds. All of these have been created from scratch, whilst retaining the philosophy of honouring those which came before. There is new lighting and new shadows, which give further depth to the experience and help to make the world feel more alive. Sadly, there is no means to switch to the original style graphics. As much as I love this modern presentation, I do suspect there will be some old schoolers amongst you who would have appreciated such an option. For those of you who have played 2020's Final Fantasy VII Remake, then Reunion will immediately feel familiar to you. Square have obviously been inspired by 7 Remake in Reunion's graphical overhaul, and many of the game's models and backgrounds feel consistent with that game. Even the in-game menus have been redesigned here to resemble those of 7 Remake, and presumably all this is to appeal to the many fans who did not experience Crisis Core back in the day. To keep up with this new graphical revamp, Reunion also has a newly arranged soundtrack from the game's original composer Tokiharu Ishimoto. These are the same themes and musical cues of the original Crisis Core, but they have now been brought up to snuff to match the quality of the rest of the remaster. Unfortunately, there is no option to toggle between the original and newly arranged tracks. Another substantial update here is with the voice-recorded dialogue. First off, there is a lot more of it. Crisis Core did have voice acting, but it was generally relegated to the important story cutscenes. In Reunion, the entire script is fully voiced in both English and Japanese, and you can freely switch between these two tracks. The original Crisis Core voice actors were not brought back, however, with Square opting to bring in the cast from Final Fantasy VII Remake, along with some additional voice talent for the non-remake characters. And presumably Square took this approach to create further continuity for modern players, but it is a shame to lose those original performances. But that is not a slight on the new cast here, who have clearly done a fine job and have given it their all.
One of the firsts has deserted. Took a bunch of seconds and thirds with him. All from Wutai. Motive? Goal? All a mystery right now. This mass soldier desertion is why your training's on hold. Whoa. A first.
Gameplay has also been updated for Reunion. The underlying systems, such as the DMW, are all present and accounted for, but everything just feels more responsive now. To the joyful ears of all of you who played the original game, manually locking onto and switching between enemies is now something you can do. The camera has been adjusted, all of the controller buttons can now be remapped, and there is just generally more choice in setting things up as to how you want them. As I mentioned, the in-game menus have been redesigned to resemble those of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and rewards have also been rebalanced. In Chapter 1, I already have Blizzard Blade, just in time for a battle against Ifrit. In the original game, this materia wasn't available until several chapters later. Some of the more familiar Square Enix remaster enhancements, however, are not included. There is no turbo mode or a toggle to remove the random battles. However, those have always been a means of patching what many might consider antiquated game mechanics, and since Reunion has revamped the overall experience anyway, it would kind of feel weird if they were present here. For those of you who are familiar with the PSP game, you will find many of the quality of life changes in Reunion bring with them a much coveted freshness, and if you are a Crisis Core virgin, then you will fit right into the new system updates, which will distract you enough to forget that underneath them is a 15-year-old game. Crisis Core Reunion is a great remaster of a great game. For those of you coming fresh out of Final Fantasy VII Remake, then it is helpful to understand that Reunion does have a more arcadey feel to it. For example, leveling up can at first feel a little weird. There is no real way to keep track of your progress through the current level. Once you've gained enough experience from defeating foes, you simply have to wait for a 777 roll on the DMW, and that will then apply the level up for you. Heck, it's even possible to gain enough experience for multiple level ups before they are granted by the DMW. In fact, the DMW provides all kinds of goodies in battle too. Buffs such as limited time to spam spells for free and limit breaks are all tied to this slot-based system. Although you do not get to control the spins of the DMW yourself, there are some ways to influence it, which you will start to discover as you play the game. Ultimately, once you get what the game is and how it plays, there is a lot of fun to be had. If you're focusing solely on the main story, you can expect to get through it in about 18 to 25 hours, depending on your pace. However, if you wish to complete all of the optional side content on offer, then easily expect the length of your playthrough to double. The gameplay is addictive and the graphical and audio overhauls do a great job in modernising what is now a 15-year-old title. It is clear that Square have poured a lot of passion into this project, and I would love to see this level of care being given to some of their other remasters going forward. For these reasons, I am heartily recommending Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion. The game is releasing December 13th on all of the major systems, and please remember to stay tuned for my complete upcoming guide to the game. But thanks for watching, and hey, it's December now, so I guess I'll sign off with a Merry Christmas to you all.